All right, today we're going to put on our detective hats and dive into a legal mystery that's almost 2,000 years old, tucked away in the pages of the Talmud. And it all spins around a single question, but with some incredibly complex answers.
So let me just ask you, what makes a perfect cut? I mean, if you're a chef, it's probably about presentation, right? If you're a surgeon, it's all about precision. But in the world of Jewish ritual law, the definition of a perfect cut is, well, it's a matter of profound importance, where the tiniest little mistake can change absolutely everything.
So here's our game plan for today. We'll start with the basics in a cut above, then get into the main mystery with the concealed blade and an ancient challenge. After that, we'll have our aha moment with direction is everything, before we explore all the nuances and doubts and end with the unresolved dilemmas.
Okay, first things first, we have to lay down the ground rules. Because to really get what this puzzle is all about, you gotta understand the fundamental principles of the act itself. This entire conversation revolves around a practice called shechita. Now, this isn't just any old method of slaughter. It's a really specific, highly regulated procedure. And the whole point is to make sure the animal's death is as quick and humane as it can possibly be. Whether or not this is done correctly determines if the meat is kosher. So, what exactly needs to be cut? Well, the law is very specific. It points to two critical things in the neck, known as the simanim, which just means the signs. These are the trachea, that's the windpipe, and the esophagus, the gullet. Cutting these is the whole ballgame.
And now we get to the real heart of our puzzle. There's a specific move, a particular action during the slaughter, that is absolutely forbidden. And it all comes down to concealment.
The key term we need to know here is hachlada. It means concealment. But listen, this isn't about hiding the knife in your pocket before you start. It's about burying the blade inside the animal's neck during the cut, somewhere between those two signs we just talked about. This is considered a huge procedural flaw. And this brings us to our star witness, a really important sage named Rav. He lays down a very clear rule. He says, look, if you hide the knife between the windpipe and the gullet while you're cutting, that slaughter is not valid. The meat is not kosher. Seems pretty simple, right? Let's just walk through that for a second. Picture this. The knife goes in, it cuts the first tube, but then, instead of continuing smoothly, the blade gets buried in the neck before it cuts the second one. It's that interruption, that concealment, that's the problem. It seems like a perfectly logical rule. But this is where our story takes a sharp turn. The moment Rav makes his ruling, you can almost imagine the other scholars in the room raising an eyebrow. They're thinking, wait a second. Haven't we heard this before? They feel like this rule is already on the books, from a much older, more authoritative source. You see, there's this foundational legal text, it's called the Mishnah, and it already had a law about concealment. And it says that if you conceal the knife under the second sign and then cut it, the slaughter is invalid. So this creates a real problem for Rav's statement. I mean, look at them side by side. The Mishnah says under the second sign, Rav says between the two signs. They seem almost identical. So why is Rav even saying this? What new information is he possibly adding? Because in the world of the Talmud, you just don't repeat old laws for no reason. There's always something more going on. And this, my friends, leads us to the brilliant solution. The commentators uncover this incredibly subtle but totally crucial distinction that just changes the whole game. It's not about where the knife is, it's about how it got there.
The sages figured it out. The key wasn't the location of the knife. It was the direction of the cut. It turns out the Mishnah and Rav were actually talking about two completely different situations.
So, the Mishnah, it was only talking about this really weird, improper kind of cut, one that starts from the back of the neck and moves forward. In that kind of scenario, yeah, of course, concealing the knife is a problem, but frankly, the whole cut is a mess. It's obviously invalid. And that is Rav's genius innovation. He was teaching that this whole prohibition on concealment, it wasn't just for some bizarre backwards cut. No, it also applies during the standard, correct, normal method of slaughter. He took a rule that applied to a weird edge case and made it a universal principle. That was his new point. But, as you might have guessed, solving one problem in the Talmud often just opens up a whole new can of worms. Now that the main issue is settled, the debate is about to get way more specific and a lot more nuanced. At first, it really seems like Rav drew a nice, clear line in the sand for us. He said that concealing the knife between the two signs is invalid, sure, but if the knife is just concealed by the animal's outer hide, no problem. The slaughter is totally fine. Seems clear enough. But then, something truly remarkable happens.
Rav's own school, his actual students, they later revisited this exact point, and they walked it back. They declared that when it comes to concealment just under the hide, their official position is, "I do not know." Rav's initial certainty completely evolved into his students' profound uncertainty.
And that uncertainty, it just opens the floodgates to a whole new wave of questions, pushing the law into these gray areas where there just are no easy answers.
The discussion just spirals into these incredibly fine points. Okay, so what if the concealment isn't from the hide, but from a cloth that someone tied around the animal's neck? What about the super thick, tangled wool of a sheep? What if the knife was only concealed for a fraction of a second, just for a tiny part of the cut? These aren't just academic games. These are real-world problems with serious consequences. And to every single one of those new questions, the Talmud gives a one-word answer: teku. It's this fantastic Aramaic term that basically means the dilemma stands. It's a formal declaration that after all of that debate, no one could find a satisfactory answer. It is a powerful admission of the limits of what we can know.
And that really leaves us with something to think about. This whole ancient journey, from what looked like a simple rule to a cascade of unanswerable questions, it kind of forces us to think about something bigger. We always want clarity, right? We want black and white rules. But maybe there's a deep wisdom and a real integrity in knowing when to just stop and say, the dilemma stands unresolved. When is certainty the goal? And when is embracing ambiguity the most honest thing we can do?